Welcome back. I'm here today with Anthony Thompson. He's a Senior Vice President with the United Business Bank. Anthony, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So, for the listeners' sake, on American Dreams, we talk about timelines of life and, people aspiring in their life to go different directions. But what brought you up to the point that you're at today, your prior education, work experience, get you where you are?
I think the definition of my career is unplanned but very interesting. I grew up inside the Beltway of Washington, D.C., to a family that was involved in the defense military complex. My stepfather ran an electronic warfare company, and even though he wasn't political, I kind of took on this mantle of protecting family interests, whether they needed to be protected or not, and became involved in politics at age 14, Republican politics at the time, and graduated from a public college in South Carolina. I had a territory in Reagan-Bush 80 that I ran a youth campaign, and went to Capitol Hill for my first jobs and worked for an incredible United States Senator from Florida, a woman, Republican, First Lady elected in her own right to the United States Senate, but she had an amazing dynamic in the fact that she had a husband, the Senate's first husband, and an amazing family, children, grandchildren, so the dynamic of being an extremely powerful freshman senator, and as well as trying to run her family. She lost her re-election, and I worked for Senator Dole and Senator Carnes, who was an appointed senator from Nebraska, and was asked by Senator Dole to get his offices set up and get him through his primary. Then I left him and went back to work for Senator Hawkins, who at the time was she was sick when she lost her seat, and she became an ambassador at large, negotiating international narcotics treaties for the United States, and we started a small public affairs company where we represented Genentech, Hoffman LaRoche, and we had this small consulting company headquartered in Florida, which got purchased by a larger consulting business that was headquartered in London, England, and after 4 years was hired away from her. She wanted to really retire and moved to London for 5.5 years as head of marketing and PR worldwide for this amazing British-American management consulting group, who was headed by a British lord who also was chairman of United Newspapers, controlled about 17% of the press in the UK and about 3% in Europe. So an amazing man who I reported to. After that, was brought back to the United States, worked for a member of the Ford family in Palm Beach, Florida, running a private real estate and equity portfolio for, again, a lovely, amazing woman, and did that for 4 years, got her more or less stable and liked her a lot. Working for the family was a dynamic that wasn't as pleasing to me, so kind of wanted to get my own life back and moved out here in 2001, expecting to be a marketing and PR guy for a .com. Landed in September of 2000, was offered 2 jobs with .coms that by March of 2001 had gone out of business while I was walking in the door, and I kind of had 2 options available to me, Starbucks or community banking. And I thought, well, probably takes more IQ to be in Starbucks, and I have a lot of clothes, so that was my first foray into banking, and I've been a community banker by and large ever since, starting on the administration side, the banking side, and then really the passion in banking is loaning money to people and building the relationships through the lending process. So that's what kind of brought me to where I am today, working for a local headquartered community bank, United Business Bank.
Yeah, it's quite a background, and it seems like the lives of people that you've been able to work with, the spheres of influence has been tremendous. But I want to bring back when you transitioned into, did you start as a loan officer, or what was your position?
I was corporate secretary and chief administrative officer.
So the bank, was it relatively small then, or?
Yeah, smaller than the bank I'm working for now. If we're a $400 million bank, there were a $150 million bank, but again, owned by a high-profile female banker.
Mm-hmm. So in the banking industry since 2000, it was March
2001.
2001. There's been some changes, and I think in 2008 some type of paradigm shift happened there. But how did you work through some of the changing and what happened in 2008 with the collapse of Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, and how was all that affecting as you went through the commercial loan process?
Well, I think learning how the bank that I was working for at the time weathered the dot-com bust here in the Bay Area. It was a regional event, but as a regional community bank, we had issues to worry about in 2001 and 2002. So by the time I was a lender in 2008, I had a fairly good idea of how to weather storm and how to work with clients who were facing headwinds financially. But nothing can prepare you for what happened to the American economy in 2008, where we were looking at really the financial structure of the world going over a cliff, and we'd be exchanging rocks or currency. I was lucky that I was with a bank at the time, Bank of Alameda, that had a lot of capital and an enlightened CEO and board that said, we have enough capital to weather this. Deal with your customers, work with them. If we can help them out, let's help them out before it gets a crisis. And if you can bring in new loans that make sense during this time, fine, we'll do it, but really focus on credit quality and making sure that our customers are taken care of. And the bank's protected. Banks are inherently thinly capitalized organizations. So people think of, well, we got $400 million in deposits, we can lose 300 of them and still be healthy. No, the core capital of a $400 million bank is maybe $35 million. You lose $5 million of that, and the regulators come and take away everything.
Anthony, I need to take a quick break. I'm visiting here today with Anthony Thompson. He is the Senior Vice President at United Bank here in Oakland. We'll be right back after these messages.
I love fishing, with my family.
I think it would be easier to use a net.
It was so much fun.
The times when we are together, it makes it all the more worth it.
Having Dad teach them how to cast a fly rod, and
as long as we're doing stuff together, we're having fun.
Some people see a father and a son fishing together, while others see a succession plan. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Anthony Thompson. He's the Senior Vice President of United Business Bank in Oakland. And Anthony, we're talking about the margins that banks operate on, and how even though maybe a $400 million bank, it's basically a $35 million allocated for operations. And when you're picking and choosing customers, let's talk about first of all who your bank is designed to service. What type of client? Individuals, businesses?
We're strictly set up as a business bank, so the only consumer products we have in the state of California are for business customers aside from a deposit account. So if you're an individual and want to open a deposit account with us, we'd be happy to have you. But in terms of lending, all of our products are geared toward businesses or people who have business purposes. So you can borrow as an individual with us, but it has to be for a business purpose.
Okay, and then as an individual comes to you, typical size of loan, where's your sweet spot for lending?
Our legal lending limit, which is anyway, we won't get in that, but it's a ratio of capital, is $6 million. And our sweet spot for a commercial real estate loan is about $4.5 million. Okay. And for a loan, a line of credit, a term loan to buy a piece of equipment, probably up to $2 million.
Do you do working lines, capital lines of credit?
We do. Yeah,
okay.
Lines of credits all day long, up to the legal lending limit of the bank, depending on the size of the customer. We're doing one now that's going to be close to $6 million, but it's also a $21 million business that has a lot of AR turnover.
When you're looking at companies, and I guess there's probably an ideal situation where a person wants to borrow funds versus others where I'm not sure I want to lend to them. How do you pick and choose who you're going to lend to?
If you get to know the borrower well enough, in my 14 years as being a banker, character is probably the number one criteria. Because if you have a borrower that you know is going to pay you back no matter what, pretty easy to lend to. But it's, of course, hard to get to a point where you can really ascertain character. So what do we have to look at? We have to look at tax return and finances. So we're looking at people that have some history of making money, have a business that has been profitable for at least 3 years, that people that don't take all the money out of their companies, that leave some retained earnings in the business, and have an appropriate use to borrow money.
So in the industry today, how are things shaping up? Are you growing, or what do you see happening in the business communities today?
United Business Bank is a little different than our peers in that we're a cash-rich bank. We probably had $90 million in Fed funds this morning, only earning 25 basis points. So our job is to loan it out safely. So we're aggressive in the marketplace on rate and term, but our credit quality is paramount. I mean, every loan we make has to be a good loan that's going to weather a storm, and most importantly, be regulator-proof. The regulators still are very much in the mode coming out of the recession that they were in the recession, is that they really are very strict in what they expect banks to loan in terms of criteria.
You know, it's interesting, since we talk about regulations, banks have suddenly become really under the microscope with the federal government since 2008. But in documenting loans, what are some of the things that people are being asked to do today?
Let me say for a preface that community banks fared very well during the recession, much better than our larger banks, and we provide no systemic risk to the system.
Okay.
But we have the same capital requirements as Wells Fargo and Bank of America, so we're treated a little unfairly in my view. But in terms of documentation, it's not quite as onerous as buying a home and a consumer loan, but on a business basis, we're really trying to nail down the assets and the cash flow that the customer has stated to us and just verify. So we'll go back many times to customers saying we need this document or that document to substantiate what you've claimed on a form to us.
Mm-hmm. Is a person oftentimes bringing their CPAs into the equation, or maybe not so much now?
CPAs are critical, and it's also a part of our lending process. If we have a business that has been with the same CPA for a long time, you have that invaluable history that a CPA has, sometimes more than the spouse, in terms of the financial condition of a borrower. And so it means a lot to us to have a CPA review or audited or even compiled financials that are being presented to us, because it's all about believability of numbers.
I'm visiting here today with Anthony Thompson. He's the Senior Vice President of the United Business Bank in Oakland. And Anthony, I need to take another break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Since you can't take your wealth with you, spend time with your family. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Anthony Thompson. He's the Senior Vice President at United Business Bank in Oakland. And Anthony, in the earlier segments, we were talking about basically the commercial loan and what it takes to go through the process to get one. But I want to spend a few minutes on really where you see things today and maybe the trends for the future with lending. Do you see much change happening in the pipeline?
I think there's a bit of a disconnect in the country. We have the Treasury telling banks to loan money, but the primary regulators of the bank telling banks don't loan as much because you may lose it. So that's kind of a paradigm shift out of the recession that really hasn't changed. I think banks want to loan money. They're the earning assets of the bank. It's what we're in business to do. It's what we open our doors every day to do, is take in deposits and loan it out to qualified borrowers. And banks will continue to do that, but it will continue to be more onerous and more bureaucratic to get it done, even in a small bank like mine, where the process is 3 people.
What drives you every day, to do what you do at work? I mean, we're in an economy of constant change and influx, and if people listen to the news, it's almost hopeless.
Yeah.
Right? But nevertheless, life goes on. So if you're looking at individuals that are coming to you and saying, should I go into banking as a career, what advice would you give?
I say yes, absolutely. It's a great place to learn a lot of skills that can help you not only in banking, but if you want to run your own business or help someone run their business. It's a fun place to meet some amazing customers. That's what I wake up every morning wanting to do, is help my customers. I have appropriate personal relationships with many of my customers, and it's really the joy of the job, is working with someone who's a lot more creative than I am as a banker, and try to get them a facility that will help their business grow and to be more more successful, employ more people, and be a greater part of the economy in our community.
It must have really helped having that early stage in your career for working with different political campaigns and also the PR agencies.
Yes, and it's also been helpful that I've spent a lot more time on the other side of the counter at a bank than actually working at a bank. So I know what a customer wants. I know what is appropriate for a customer to ask a bank to do and not to do. And it drives our senior management sometimes crazy that I'm often siding with the customer rather than the bank. But almost always the customer is right.
So what type of attributes would you look for in a person coming to you today, say, Anthony, I'd like to come work for your bank?
Someone with some financial skills who maybe's had some experience in a bank or a financial institution before coming to us. Community banks don't have a network to really train people, so we like people with some experience coming in the door, but really someone at the heart wants customer service. It's the only point of differentiation the community bank has with our big bank peers is community service and the ability to touch customers and know our customers. So if you don't have the DNA that makes you want to know your customer, you probably shouldn't be coming to my bank.
Now, when we talk about community banks, community infers that it would be in a relatively small area. Is that true for United Business Bank? Or are you limited to your geographic region?
We
where
are,
you can lend?
but we have a unique footprint as a community bank. We operate in the 9 Bay Area counties. We have 2 branches in Southern California, so LA County we can loan money in. We bought a little bank in Albuquerque, so that's a footprint for us, and we have a branch in Sacramento and Seattle. So we have 8 branches, 3 state, which is a strange footprint for a community bank, but we're very much entrenched in those communities, and we only lend geographically where those branches are.
That's interesting. So even you cross the state lines into New Mexico then?
Yes, we do.
Now, everyone that is doing business with you, are they assigned a loan officer to work with the company?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're a big commercial customer, you deal with me, and it depends on where you fit in the organization. But there's always a name and a person that our customers have to call into. It's a strategic value with us. And it could be the CEO of the bank or the chief credit officer of the bank. They field customers' phone calls all day long.
Do you get involved with the strategic growth and outlook for the bank or in your role?
Yes, I'm part of the management team of the bank, and we meet a couple times a year to review the strategic direction of the bank and where we want to go. And we look through we're a flat organization with 65 people, so you don't have to look too far to find someone with some input that's going to be valuable on how we're going to grow and how to make our customers more happy.
It's interesting that as you're sitting in that senior management team, when do you decide to open a branch in a particular area, and what drives that decision?
It's difficult to open brick and mortar. They're expensive to do, and we're a cash-rich bank. I mean, most banks open branches for deposit gathering, and we have an amazing deposit gathering operation. So with us, it's really about trying to strategically make our branches more valuable and to provide a deeper depth of service to the customers that we either don't have or have already.
So you'd say that decision is primarily customer-driven?
Customer-driven.
Okay. And at the outlook here, what advice would you have for someone looking at commercial banking as a career?
I'd say, have that DNA that you want to deal with customers, have some financial experience, and you can have an amazingly successful, fun career. Unfortunately, having to wear a suit and tie, but that's probably the only negative as being a banker. We get to do some fun stuff. As a community banker, I'm allowed to really get involved in the community. I'm treasurer of the Alameda Health System Foundation. We support the public hospitals in Alameda County. I'm vice chair of the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the Economic Development Committee of the Oakland Chamber. We're really allowed to get our hands dirty in the community and provide some great service to our brethren in the community, which is a lot of fun. And you don't get to do that often and get paid for it.
Now, is it 65 employees bank-wide?
Bank-wide.
And then how large is the Oakland office?
Probably about 30 of those.
So the Oakland is your hub?
That's definitely our hub. It's where we were founded. It's where we're headquartered. It's where we have the most people. It's where we're the deepest in our community. It's home. So
Anthony, if someone wanted to contact you for a commercial loan or the opportunity to see if you're the right fit for their business, how would they go ahead and do that?
UnitedBusinessBank.com. My picture and phone number's on the website.
We're visiting here today with Anthony Thompson. He's the senior vice president of United Business Bank. and works as a commercial loan officer. And Anthony, I'd like to thank you for being on today's show.
Thank you. It was wonderful being here.